We're here to solve this Araf puzzle by Ashish. It's called the 50s, in part because of these two large clues, but the star of this puzzle is very much about these small clues. We've mentioned before in Araf puzzles that clues that are one away or nearby can't extend into each other, and what happens at the star of this puzzle is we have essentially three clues coming out of this corner, none of which interact with each other, and they have to find some home or connection elsewhere in the grid. I always mention at the start it's good to take clues and sort of see where they can reach. This 2 can come to this 6, it can come to this 7, it can come to this 9, so there are a lot of options here. This 2 can come to a lot of these things. This one doesn't have those same choices. It can't reach anywhere to the top because this is exactly 9 cells to reach, 7 to reach. This is 8 to reach, 7 to reach. This is not usable. So this has 3 potential clues it could connect with. It can connect to this 9 and to either of the 50s. And the starting way when we sometimes sketch out or think about these connections is to try to imagine the connection in the grid and see where it's leaving behind a really impossible cluster of clues. And one of the things that's most difficult in Araf is when you leave behind either an odd set of numbers or a really isolating set of numbers. So let's just imagine, I'll just put it in by putting my pen in, if this one connects to the 9, functionally blocks off these clues to the upper left from this 2. And so what you have to think about is where can this 2 go? It can't come to this 5. It can't come straight to this 50, because if it comes to this 50, it blocks behind this 5 as well. And if it comes up to this 50, which is the only other option for it, you can see it, the 8, 7, 6, 9 are all too far away. This 2 to 50 leaves behind just these 4 clues to think about, and one of them can connect to the 50. Any of these can connect to the 50, but none of the remaining 3 can connect to each other. And so the easiest thing to potentially see at the start, and it's not easy at all, that's why this is a Wednesday-ish puzzle and smallest, but the easiest thing you can remove from an option is the one connecting to a 9. The 1 can connect to either of the 50s, but a thing to see is that the 1 can't connect to the 50 by using this lower right connection. If it came this way or came this way, it causes some of the same problems we were just looking at, that this 2 really is going to have an issue if it can only come to these 2 clues. And when you're connecting over this way, you're blocking off the rest of the grid from the 2. And so the deduction you will make sort of early in the puzzle is something like this. And this is not a firm wall. This is a number link kind of connection, but the 1 is going to come up and around. We still don't know which 50 it connects with, but it's going to make a connection like this in the grid. And that's helpful to understand because the first thing it does, it says that this 2 itself is going to be in a fairly limited set. It's going to have to keep itself coming up, and it could connect to the 6, it could connect to the 9 or 50, but it will help in the way of saying that even these clues now in the middle themselves have to now sort of deal and manage around the grid in different ways. And so what we're going to do from this point is, recognizing this comes up, is again think about the different connections. We talked where leaving an odd or even number of clues is bad. If you hadn't seen it yet, connect the 1 into the 50, however you want to connect it. Three clues are to the upper left and an odd number also to the lower right. This is no good, and so what we actually know is that the 1 connects to this 50, and that will set up most of the work in this puzzle. What it actually lets us consider next is this 8 clue, which is probably the most challenging. It can't connect to any of these 7s or 9s. It also can't reach across to this 2. It tells us that this 8 connects to a 5. These 7s can't connect to themselves, so this 7 has to come out and connect to something. And if it reaches behind to this 9, it isolates these 2 digits, so this 7 connects to this 2, this 7 connects to this 9. We're still thinking through the overall connections in the grid. One thing to recognize is with this dotted line from the 1 to the 50, at least this 3rd row of clues is going to be used. And so one option that's not available is to move this 4 down and avoid this 50 clue, because this 3 then can't go anywhere. We've effectively pinned by using this cell here for the 150 connection and this cell here for the 4 connection. This 3 is now on its own. And so we can at this stage even know that this 4 connects to the 50. The 3 can connect to the 9, it can't connect to the 6, so it turns out the 3 must connect to the 9, and the 2 connects to the 6. And so the real first steps of this puzzle aren't at all logical, or at least they're not in sure stage. Like I wrote these in ink, but you'll see that these are traced paths, they're topological paths, but trying to do the number link connections in this grid of steps that are there. We can now actually look at these and see that some of them are for sure known, like this 2 to 6 dotted path is the only 5-cell path possible that exactly uses the right, exactly fits between 2 and 6. 2 and 7 can be as large as 6 cells, and this is exactly 6 cells in the dotted path, so this is exactly right for how that goes. Because of this border, let's just draw it in. The 4 to 5 and 3 to 9 can be started, and we can start this connection over here as well. This has to use this. The 3 to 9 is going to take as many as 8 cells, and a thing above it, this 4 has to take at least 5 cells. So as a very starting point, this is how the top of the grid has to look in logical sense. This cell, after it's taken, is the last one this group can have because it's 8 total, which means this corner is in something else. Once we know it's in something else, this shape comes back, and we have this at the top. Knowing how these puzzles tend to work, the edges of clues, sort of as we get to the border of the grid, are always part of the dotted shapes where there's no other option, and so once we draw on this top boundary, this 150 connection certainly uses this boundary here. This 8 and this 5 connect to take a total of 7 cells. You'll see that if it comes this way or this way or this way or any of these ways, there are no more cells to the left of this dotted line here that can be used. And we can also think about the 7-9 clue. There are exactly 8 cells here that must be used. And so this is a case where the minimal packing has to take all the cells to the left of this dotted line, and the only way that actually uses all the cells that are conceptually there to the left of this edge is to have these 8 efficiently packed and these 7 efficiently packed. And the rest of this space is in the 50. And we've solved this puzzle. It started really first by doing connections and seeing how a 1 to 9 blocks off a lot of options for the rest of the grid, and even a 1 to the side of the middle cluster blocks off a lot of the grid. But once we made this first link here, can match all the rest into what they connect with and then pack them in efficiently. And not all Araf puzzles will start by making the connections first, but this was a puzzle that I saw that capability with. I hope you learned a little bit through this unique logical path of how to approach some Araf puzzles, and we'll see you again soon.